So today, I had the idea of sharing something that's kind of a progression of what we've been dealing with and sharing here at Unity of Sedona. And, you know, you've heard me say for several years here, and some people that are watching from around the world, some people have heard me teach for 35 years. And something that's never changed has been my focus on our priorities. God first, God consciousness, God first. Not just fiddle-faddle, conversation, not just like quotes from scriptures. That's never been my thing. But I also talk about, Buddha and Moses and Peace Pilgrim and Mother Teresa and all that, but never just for the sake of being eclectic. It's always been a piece here and there. Why? How? To tie it back into the main point, which is our connection with God. If we summarized Michael Mirdad's teachings, it would be, that's that guy. He's really about connecting with God, but that's not all. Integrating that connection into our day-to-day lives on every level. Every level. Not just, I pray regularly. Michael talks about communing with God. Yeah, I do that. That's not all I said. Part 2 is how to integrate that connection into who we are. In every way. From parents to employees, lovers to whatever else we do. Like full quality of life. And then that's not all. The third piece is, and how you bring that to others. Connection with God, changing self, and bring the change to others. Just the same 3 steps or points in a 12-step program when you summarize the 12 steps. And just the same as all Buddhism. And all the Course in Miracles. Pages and pages and pages and pages of material. Doctrines, tantras, scriptures, sutras and so on. And all they're trying to say. Find an efficient way to connect with God, an effective way to connect with God. Let that make changes in your own life and being and bring those changes to others. That's a summary of what I teach. And it changes in its facets or form. However, on another note, another way to summarize those 3 is that we learn to become the living presence of God, which would be the affect others. It would be to integrate in self. It would be to commune with God, obviously. So in a nutshell, in a summary, it's be the living presence of God. But if somebody comes along, me or Jesus or Mother Teresa or whomever, and says, hey, everyone, be the presence, then everybody wonders what that means, and they start diverting into what that means. Like the Monty Python's, Life of Brian. What he means is be the presence. That means give little presents with bows to each other. No, the presence of God. It's pretty soon everybody starts interpreting it based on their own experience. Be the presence of God. That means, and then the really deep people would interpret that. He means just be the presence. Don't even talk. Don't even breathe. Because that would be breaking the doctrine. Be the presence means to do nothing. That's not what I said. But that's how twisted people can be, and then they twist teachings. So we have to elaborate a little. Be the presence. So let's make that connect with God. Let that change who you are, and then let that bring that presence forward to others. And then it splits into those 3, and then people start diverting those. And then those become 12 steps, and then they make those into books, and then the books into religions, and then we're just nuts again. So today I want to summarize it as being the I am presence of God. Ernest Holmes said the name of God in us is called Christ. So Christ isn't a Jesus thing. Christ is the name of God in us. So when I talk about Christ, do your best to steer clear of the thing called Christianity, because that's all messed up. Really, it's hard not to be. Religion, and then books, and then rules, and then you're making up your own rules. There was a holy war fought around, the early hundreds after the Catholic Church became big and powerful enough, several hundred years after Jesus. Bless you. You had this holy war take place because it was an immediate rift in the Catholic Church between the Cathars and the Catholics. They were both the Catholics, but the Cathars said, hey, here's a novel concept. Since we're developing this thing called a religion, called Catholicism, why don't we stick only to the words Jesus actually said? And then the Pope said, kill them. you know. So a holy war was created to kill, and they did. They killed and rounded up and killed all these Cathars because that's how obvious. We don't want to know what Jesus actually said. We're going to make some stuff up that kind of works into convenience for us. And I'm not saying all of any one religion, the people are all messed up. It's the religion itself starts to become a group of egos trying to, get what they want out of something. So it gets a bit messy. So as you know, I want to say that there's value in all things. Every religion has had a value. I don't care if it's an earth religion or a sky god's religion. All things have a place for different groups of people. But at the same time, there's a part of me that's also said, let's not get caught up in silliness and dogmas and things that kind of split us off from the main point. The main point is what? Awakening the Christ, the Spirit of the Christ in us. Not Christianity. It's hard for me as a teacher to even talk about Christ sometimes because I know what happens in the minds of the listeners. It's too easy to go, Christ, so he means Jesus, so he means Christianity. No. Quite the contrary. The thing that the religion forgot, Christ as a consciousness. So what's important, and one of the most interesting things about Christ is that people actually think Christ was born 2,000 years ago when Jesus was born. If you do your study and look even in the Old Testament, you'll find Christ already existed, which is interesting. Christ already existed. There were people talking to the Christ. King David was talking to the Christ. Not only did he have a soul next to him that helped him write the Psalms, and that soul was quite the soul, which I won't get into that, but he was communicating, and sometimes you can hear him talking to God, but other times you can hear him talking to what was the Christ. So if the Christ was here already, then what was Jesus? See, the Christ was an archetype of consciousness, the highest, ultimate archetype of consciousness. It's the consciousness that we took off, set aside, and came in and started becoming humans incarnating. But this is what it's meant when it says, that there is something, a treasure waiting for us in heaven. You see, there's something waiting for us. And A Course in Miracles says, this is a gift from God that you guys, we took off, we set aside, and we went into becoming limited human beings, incarnating and thinking that we're growing spiritually, which is kind of funny and absurd. I'm growing spiritually. I'll be back in a minute, God. And we're on earth incarnating just by the law of evidence. We're not doing a great job. What's weird, you go to earth and you'll hear spiritual teachers. We're on earth to experience a spiritual journey. This isn't the place to do that. There's no greater place than the spirit we were created to be. It's the acceptance of it that gets our freedom. It isn't coming here and learn how to cook omelets that makes you enlightened. Human experiences don't actually get us there, but what human experience does do is test you on the consciousness you believe you have. So this is the trial and error place. This is the beaker where the fires come up to prove that we are the thing we claim to be. Somebody emailed me this morning, which is kind of partly what inspired me to talk about this. And they said, I think it was maybe in the Facebook group or something, but how do we perfect ourselves? Or can we perfect ourselves? Well, as soon as you think you're not perfect, needing perfected, that's not God, that's the ego voice. Then the ego will say, but I'm here for you. Let me help you out with that perfecting yourself, which is already fooling you because you think you're not perfect now. But it'll tell you, it's okay. Let me help you with that. And it cannot actually help you perfect. It teaches us to create an imperfect world and tells us how to try to get perfected. Then at the end of the day, we try, and we're in pain over it. It loves that. But especially if the pain builds too much, it'll make us blame someone else for our inability to become perfected. If it weren't for the genetics in this body, I could have perfected. If it weren't for this or past lives or, and God's like, oh my God, oh my me. God's going to go, let me try this again. You were created in my perfect image. We'll get back to you on that, God, because I got one more class, out there in the adult education college thing to take to help me get my degree so that I can feel like I'm a more accomplished person, or I've got one more child to have, or one more child to send off to college, or whatever. They're all just things, including sickness. If I can just overcome this sickness, it proves that I'm powerful. It's the peace that you drop into when you don't even focus on what other people or our ego selves would have called flaws in the first place, that we find our perfection. It's not in the doing. It's in the accepting. And of course the ego is going to say, oh no, that can't be it. Seriously, look at you. You could do something. Look at you. You could certainly clean yourself up a little bit. And as soon as we buy into it a fraction, you've taken the whole thought system. As soon as you say, well, I'm just going to touch up a little bit, psychologically, spiritually, and so forth, then it means you're already affirming you're not okay. And I'm not talking about okay as we are, because some people say Michael's talking about we have to learn to just accept each other. But we did a talk on that. Please go check it out. It's on YouTube somewhere. But because that's a whole farce. I do not mean accepting our flawed nature either. I'm talking about accepting that deep inside we're divine beings. I don't mean this thing. I'm talking about my divine core. The rest we accept on a different level, which is, I accept that's the way it looks, but it's not me. See, I don't mean I accept it. Oh yeah, I've learned to just accept myself and other people. We're all messed up, but that's as good as it's going to get. I don't mean that failure consciousness. That's not what I'm referring to. So imagine, Christ was there all along. Christ is the consciousness we set aside and started incarnating. Without it. Until the day we got somebody to get to the point of commitment to remembering who he was. Different individuals, men and women in history. Every little bit of effort that anybody ever put out there helped the collective consciousness of humanity to try to raise our ability that where somebody could finally rise out of the group and own that consciousness again, Christ consciousness. You see, we set it aside and then we started working on our spirituality generally. We did it as cultures, we did it as races, we did it as philosophies, and that all helped. Jesus says in A Course in Miracles, it helped a person to achieve complete oneness with God. And he says, however, anybody can work on becoming enlightened, but doing it from the human consciousness or lifestyle, he says, takes too much time. You can learn to lay on a bed of nails, and you can fast, and you can be celibate, do all these things. And he says it's going to accomplish something, but it's just going to take too long. You can have it now. And Buddha before him said, you don't need to keep doing this. So Buddha's gift to humanity was to say, and watch this, I get it. He's a human who woke up and said, I get it, meaning the human situation. I'm an awakened human being. 500 years later, Jesus comes forward now as a person and says, not only am I going to do the same thing and be awakened as a human being, I'm going to awaken as God. It's different. Human awakenings can bring us at best what's called mastery. Ascended masters. But ascended masters can actually still get hooked again and come back into an incarnation cycle. They can get hooked into the illusion. They can actually fall from grace again. That's why Jesus refers to those who come back to earth who have already kind of awakened. When I say awakened, there's humans who have awakened. That's different than what Jesus did. He awakened all the way, not just from the earth plane, all the way, which I'll come back to. But he says in A Course in Miracles, when humans get it, they become like ascended masters. Those of them who get the human condition and they wake up, they're ascended humans, let's call it. Okay? Great teachers and miracle workers potentially. But he does say, however, if they choose to incarnate again, they could get caught again. All it takes is one illusion, buying into one illusion, and you'll get hooked again. But he says that's why we call them the saints of God. And in other traditions, they're called bodhisattvas. Because they're not just awakened, but they're going to go, I'm awakened, but I love people so much, I'm going in again, even at the risk of my own falling. That's incredible. I think most of us would say, oh, if I was awakened, man, oh, I'd be so done with this place. I'd be like, let me just stay in bliss till they all get it. But a bodhisattva is going, who's the all we're talking about? If we're all one, they're just a part of me that hasn't gotten it yet. So why sit around here, on the proverbial cloud of couches, watching, the Akashic Record TV channel? I might as well go in and try and help some more. And what an incredible, it could be me, could be you that's done this. But what an incredible commitment to humanity to risk falling into this stuff again, to risk coming in and being abused or being an abuser. Because once you bite the apple, so to speak, you can go into who knows what. Once you buy into fear, it can make all kinds of yucky things happen to us and from us. So A Course in Miracles, I have a quote I'm going to share. Because the Course and other things, sometimes we say, hear these words, ask in the name of Jesus Christ. And immediately it sounds very fundamental Christian. Here's what the Course says about that. When you want something, ask in the name of Jesus Christ. The Course says, a name does not actually heal, nor does an invocation call forth any special power or have greater power than our own soul. It's not putting down invocations and names and so forth. It's saying, if we're the Christ, how can something have more power than us? It doesn't make any sense. I'm the Christ who forgot I'm the Christ, but this leaf, the magical leaf, is going to help me awaken. I created the leaf. How could it do me any good? Is that making sense? So what he's saying in the Course is, things out there can't really, even a name, it's just a symbol. It's just a word, like it's a vocabulary. It's alphabet put together. It's the consciousness behind it that does anything. It's always consciousness. A rock doesn't actually heal you. It's the consciousness. It can trigger something in us that makes us choose to heal. Pills do not heal us. We know that. But it can trigger an awakening, almost like reversing a disease you have. Sometimes people have claimed that excitement created enough energy in the hormones that it shifted a disease in their body. One individual said he had a potentially fatal disease and he just watched comedies, Three Stooges, over and over and over, made himself laugh until he was cured. Like, seriously? Yes. Because it's in consciousness. Now, does that mean that the video box, you go get the video collection, the Three Stooges, and is it the chant? Remember that? That was their theme song for their show. It's the chant. It's got special vibrations, frequencies. I would never want to say that out in public. Okay? So it's because there's three stooges, sacred numbers, the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Right? Who are you really going to buy that? But if watching Three Stooges episodes helps even one individual be cured of disease, it has something to it. But it's what it does inside us that makes us then choose to heal. The laughter isn't the show. The tones of your didgeridoo, it isn't the didgeridoo. It's an empty stick. It's what I choose to let it bring me to, which is a calmer state. I am the power here. Why? Because I am the Christ, any one of us. We created the entire thing. We co-created the universe. We don't co-create a universe and go, wow, I created this gong and it's more powerful than I am. I'm just a lowly nothing, but oh, now I'm amazing. That's not how this works. It's I create this, I create vibration, I create sound, and I forgot that I created it. So in a sense, when I hear that sound and its resonance and the reverberation goes inside of me, it's not doing anything for me or to me. But what it does do, it reminds me that I created it. And when I remember that I created it, I remember I'm a creator. When I remember I'm a creator, I remember that I'm powerful. And then I start to heal. And then I go, wow, that thing was amazing. That thing outside of us. And then we've accidentally got caught in empowering things outside of us again. And I'm not saying diss them. I'm saying recognize that it's reverberation from me to it and back to me. It of itself isn't doing anything for me. So if the Course is telling us the name Jesus Christ, it's just a name, it's just alphabet, words, then why should we call upon that name? This is great, a couple quotes I brought, but then why would we call it? He says, because Jesus woke up all the way, not human awake, like Buddha awakened one. He woke up all the way to full remembrance that we're God. He's remembering God. He's not remembering an enlightened consciousness, a wise consciousness, I know how to break the cycle of reincarnation consciousness. He's not awakening his inner Saint Germain, nor even his inner angelic self. God, all the way home. So it means he becomes the one who cannot fall again. Even an ascended master can fall, which means there's an ounce of belief that we can separate. But when Jesus became Christed, Christ means God in man. So when Jesus became Christed, he became God again. And God cannot fall. So he can't fall again. So when we're calling upon Jesus Christ, it's a symbol. That's all it is. He even says in the Course, I'm just a symbol. How could I be anything special if we're all one? But I'm the symbol of your remembrance that you're God. So when you call on me, you're calling on your own remembrance. Now, if you want to call on your inner Gandhi or your inner, Mo, Curly, and Larry, that's fine. And you can say that's silly. Why would you do that? And it's okay. You know why? Because people have diverse levels of consciousness. So some people, the best they're going to do is call on science and know God exists. But the very fact that they're searching in science for something means they're searching for something. They just don't know what it is. They're fundamental Christians, and I make fun of fundamental religions all the time. But in reality, if you know me, you know I don't actually judge these things because everything has a value. Even agnosticism has a value. Even a person who's so angry that they're an atheist, as a healer, how could I not know that it's about their hurt? How could I blame them? Given the world we have, how could I blame them for doubting that there's a God? And they represent the part of us that knows that this place hurts. It's a lot of pain here. So this is where it gets interesting, because when Jesus remembered that he fully remembers that he's God, he can't just do a little bit of something here and there. This is why in scriptures he's called like the King of the universe. He's been given the keys to the universe. It's why all masters, the ascended masters, refer to him as the Master of Masters. Again, I'm not emphasizing religion or Christianity. I'm saying we have to come to understand there's a difference. I'm not expecting you guys to start walking around going, yes, Jesus, because it could seem a little traditional. But I am saying, even if it's in the back of your mind, don't forget the power of Christ. And don't forget the power and the work that a brother of ours did. A brother and a sister, because his mother, Mary, was in a sense his companion, not partner, but his companion in the act of birthing the Christ. There would be no Jesus if a woman weren't already accepting her own Christ as a consciousness to some degree, enough to bear the energy of a Christed child coming through her. So she was, to a major degree, and is now an ascended master, but she's the mother of the universe. She's the archetype of Kuan Yin, which was not a being, but an archetype, the divine mother. Mary says, okay, I'm going to step into that and be the embodiment of the divine mother. And some of us go, well, yeah, I do that sometimes too. If only. You don't just kind of. Most of us can't even become a very good demonstration of a decent human being for a whole day without slipping here and there. To try and imagine that you're going to embody the complete, holy, divine mother of the universe. And she pulled it off. But because she could own that energy well enough, embody, she was a vessel container, then the Christ could come through her and go the next level. You see that? One is the passive, I'm going to hold the container. The other comes in, the assertive, the male, and he's going, okay, and I'll live it. I'm going to bring it out and share the message. It's not about gender, it's about types. So the divine feminine isn't just in Mary. We have to start becoming that same Christed Mary before we can even become the Christ like Jesus. So we have to do both. We have to nurture this Christ as a divine feminine in us. And one of the simplest ways is simply to start every day saying, here I am. That was her mantra. Here I am. You know, when she said, I'm the handmaiden of the Lord. Those are the terms for the time. But all it means is, here I am. God, use me as you will. And that is not a low statement. The last shall be first. When we say, here I am, we actually start filling with the presence of the Holy Spirit. When we start saying, no, I got it covered. I've been studying spirituality a long time. I don't need the Divine Mother. I don't need the Christ. I'm pretty good, man. I'm amazing. I've read lots of books. And all of that amounts to like maybe 1% when it comes to spiritual consciousness. Humility brings us everything. So we have to set aside all of our understanding of spiritual growth and switch it to something else, which is the humility suddenly starts becoming our form of education. In our humility, we're suddenly filled with everything we need to know. You know, in a way, that's something I'm very grateful for, is that I don't even have an interest in flaunting a bunch of education of some kind, because I have none. You know, but I feel pretty good about that. And I'm grateful because I'm like, if anybody at all has ever liked my teaching, healing, or anything I do, here's what's the interesting part about that. It can only have come from God. That's exactly what Buddha said and other good teachers. They said, this isn't coming from my head. This isn't coming from books. And all I'm saying is more and more of us can start trusting that when we start the day saying, here I am, those spontaneous things that come through your words, your thoughts, your energy, your healings, you'll start seeing the bar raising on all that. You'll go, God, I work a lot less at this. You know, when I was a kid and thought I'm going to do some healing work, you know, I stepped forward and, okay, technique. I'm going to do this technique because here's what you do in acupressure or whatever technique it might be. And you put the hands here in Reiki into it. But after a short time, I realized I don't have an interest in it. Meaning technique. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm saying for me, the technique surrendered to here I am. And then it's whatever happens in the moment. Whether it's guidance and intuition, a psychic reading, hands-on healing, it just happens in the moment. And I'll always get in the way now and again, potentially. I mean, there's always the human that misinterprets the guidance to do this or do that. You know, we do that as human beings. We're filters. But we do our best to stay out of the way and allow perfect God presence to flow through us. And it's not for everyone. The ego gets in the way. The ego's going to say, oh, I don't get it, or I don't like it, or I like to be proud about my education or whatever. But that's not yet the Christ self. That's still the ego. So for Christ, now that he's accepted this level of consciousness, there's no limit to the power. Not because he's more powerful than this master. It's different. There's no levels anymore. It's completely God. But it's one of us that remembered. And since we're one, there's a part of us that has already remembered. You get what I just said? There's a part of us that already has experienced the consciousness that we rave Jesus did. And he did. And he deserves our respect as a human who could pull that off. But he says, but now that I've done it, it's already in you. It's already downloaded. It's already activated, so you don't have to do any work to do it except acceptance. And since I've done it, this is how amazing it is. I'm not fighting evil forces. Jesus saying, I'm not a superhero, ascended master. I'm out of it completely. So I don't have to fight forces. I already know who you are. I already know everything you need. This is stuff he told us, but we didn't get it at the time. I know your needs before you know your needs. You think you need a car, and I know what you need. You need to have that relationship, that conversation with the car salesman, because he's going to look just like your ex. And I want to help you heal. Why? Because I'm Jesus and I want you to heal. No, it's not duty and obligation. He's going to say, guess what? You're made in the image of God and you're this beautiful being. But today, one of the things that's in your way from remembering that is your resentment of your ex. So I'm going to help you work on that. And I know just how to do it. I'm going to even endorse and encourage you to go, that's it, I need a car. Now your ego self is going to go, because it makes me look better and I want a car, I deserve a car. You're going to go through all the human perspectives of why you need a car, why you want a car, and what car to get. And you're going to, throw dice and flip a coin of what car it should be. You're going to channel it, get your pendulum through the car lot. That's how you do it in Sedona anyway. But, car lot, pendulums, and you'll do all that. Jesus is just like, because what Jesus is doing is this. And this is cool, but listen to this. Jesus is going, if you allow me to have the day, I know you think you want a car, and that's great. What I'm going to do is play off of that. I'm going to line it up and make the car salesman seem like your ex, but yet you're going to have to trust them. So I'm going to line all this up. You're going to get a little triggered, but the person won't be your ex. They'll be different, perhaps. And maybe they'll bring potential healing to you. And then once you're healed, you creating a car that works well, has great gas mileage, it's a great, car you didn't even think you could afford, is going to come to you. Why? Because you wear purple? No. Because you go to the certain church and you have certain beliefs or religions? No. Because you healed. You got something out of the way, so you got the car. You can get the car out of manipulation that humans do. I'm going to just fight hard to get it and I'll pay enough for it. It's doing. Or you get what was in the way of getting the car out of the way because it's healed and the car just comes to you. Even in the New Age movement, we're still thinking we're fancy, amazing beings. Still in the doing mode. We went from, I used to have a difficult life where it was tough for me to create things. But now I learned I am God and I can create anything. All that is a fancier, egotistic thought system. The real one is, there is no need to do anything. I'm going to affirm it 10 times a day because that's what the magic is. And then gong, 10 times gong. Look at that, I got the car. Don't even look at this gong because it's really sacred. It brought me a car. I don't want you humans to taint it with your energy. The Holy Gourd from Life of Brian Monty Python, The Holy Gourd, You're just making things have power that don't have power. The bottom line I'm saying is that we're God and forgot. And we mainly forget because we learn to be hurt and be judgmental, and those judgments get in the way of us having the car. Heal the judgments, the car comes. It really can't be much easier. One of them, you have to go fill out papers and go to the bank and push for this and try for that and get your credit reports and all that, which the world wants you to have. I get that. The other involves healing. I mean, you could say, well, but you have to do the paperwork and all that. I get that in this world. But do you know that miracles can be so incredible? The miracle of healing blocks can be so powerful and incredible. If you heal, someone will hand you the car with no paperwork. In the old days, we call those miracles. Rare miracles. Anything can happen. Anything. Vision, you wake up one morning and your vision's back. Or, you're healed from a disease of some kind. Or relationships seem healed and they used to have triggers and issues. All kinds of miracles can happen. And it's not through as much doing as much as letting go of what's in the way. It's all it is. So Jesus got it all the way. He got the full awareness that there really is only God. And wow, you folks are now doing all this, and I did it too. He's saying I was part of this cycle. But I didn't just wake up and become wiser in the cycle. I became all the way awakened into God. So I am unique, he's saying. When you call on me, it's not making me special. But when you call on me, you're calling on the symbol within your mind. It's like if science were to say there's a neuron, one neuron that we isolated somewhere in the amygdala area of the brain or in the front part of the brain. It's got to be near the third eye to impress some of us. So we'll put it there. So there's this one neuron that if you activate it, it activates the Christ self. Of course, we're going to start like walking around going like this. Somebody ticks you off. You know, somebody cuts you off, you're going to see drivers. Jerk. You know, Christ, Christ, Christ. Because that's what humans do. But if science could say there's an actual cell that if you could stimulate it somehow, people will be taking the herb to stimulate it. If it was tapping it, they would tap it. If there was a cell that would give you everything you want, we would do that. And that's what Jesus represents. He is a cell, or a part of every cell in the brain that when activated gives us everything we want. It's true. And that cell is called love, or that part of every neuron. It's the love part. It's not a neuron that is love that against neurons that are not love, although that's how it looks in science. Neurons that have bad memories and they're wired, with limitation, doesn't matter. In every cell and in every form of life, somewhere there has to be a spark of the Christ God presence. So what we're doing is learning to awaken that Christ presence, not one portion of our brain against the other portion, but that spark in every neuron, coming to such brilliance in its light that it actually sort of, you could say, purges away all the darkness or illuminates the dark places within every neuron. Even if one neuron represents this or that or the other, it's really just every part of every neuron becomes illuminated. So because of his consciousness now, God, he can bend time, not because he's efforting. None of it's real. None of this world is actually real. Yogananda, Buddha, great masters, Peace Pilgrim, they all still died, but he didn't. Or when he did, he resurrected himself. That's kind of unique. It's a unique gift. It's not just he raised from the dead or he manifested funds somewhere. Yogananda has stories of manifesting financing for a project that came out of the blue. There's stories of Buddha healing people. There's stories of Peace Pilgrim inspiring people. Gandhi saving a nation. Martin Luther King, and so on. Those are all wonderful miracles. Very, very impressive and necessary miracles. His is different. His is complete remembrance of being God. So he didn't, once dying, he doesn't believe it, so he just can come back to life. He never had to resurrect Lazarus from the dead with effort. He didn't go, okay, this is going to be a tough one probably because this is somebody dead. I didn't mind the lepers, but this is, so, give me a leper, but this is the person's dead. Even a leper I can kind of get to move around a little and look like they're better. This person's dead. He's saying none of it is harder than another because none of it's real. I mean, I hope you get this. It's a complete different level of being. Not doing, a completely different level of being, a different level of consciousness. So when we call upon Jesus or Christ, we're calling upon God. That's all. We're calling upon God. But in a world, we could say there's no magic to it. There's really no in a name or in a thing of any kind of in the world. But in this world of symbols, because it's all symbols, or let's say in a world of holograms, in a world that is a hologram, there's one image in the hologram that holds a special place, a unique position. And so here's the hologram. And there's this gal and that camera and that wall and that building and that pole. Those are things in the hologram. So the name Jesus Christ is still a hologram. It's a thing in the world. But it symbolizes a thing not of this world. It symbolizes a love that is not of this world. So it's not an herb to fight a disease. You see, there's still a doing. Something's going to fight something. It's not a massage against a tense muscle. It's not a thing against a thing. It's something that is beyond things. So it decides what the things are going to be today. It can change them. It can manipulate them. It can release them. It can juggle them because none of them are real. So it can make believe. So in this world, when we call upon that thing, we're calling upon the infinite power of God. Another quote I brought. It becomes the shining symbol for God, the name of Christ, standing so close to God that the little space between the two is lost the moment that the name is called to mind. Again, It's a shining symbol of God standing so close to God. The symbol, meaning the name of Jesus Christ or the name of Christ, is so close to God that the little space between the two is lost the moment the name is called to mind. Calling upon that name, because that name, even though it's just a symbol for now, stands next to God, so close to God in frequency, vibration, consciousness, that when you call upon it, it's as though there is no space between the two and you're making it all the way home. It's perfect. The perfect name of love. Then why don't we just say love? Because your brain automatically thinks love. Love comes, love goes, romantic love. It's messed up. Why don't we call it infinite consciousness? Try it. We keep assigning all these little names. So the Course goes on to say that the name Jesus Christ actually holds what we would have assigned many other names to. So why go to all the other little names and just go to the one that you're trying to really say? Like the name God. Some people will say, I don't really use God. I use infinite tree of all trees, anything but God, because they have issues with God. I just call it universal consciousness. Then I want to say to them, what do you mean by universal consciousness? Well, God. Then just say God. But because people have issues, I never pick on them. They'll say infinite love oneness window. Okay. All hail the windows, the gourd, the sacred sandal, or whatever else. Because human beings are so refracted in their consciousness, they like to name little things for now. But why don't we try and be a little more bold and just say God? And be bold enough to say Christ that represents God. You see what I'm saying? Let's just be bold enough. Try it more and more. And again, I'm not pushing it. You won't, typically you don't hear me walking around Jesus, 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 unless I'm frustrated. No, kidding. Jesus. So, I don't typically walk around preaching like that. But you know that I'm all about Christ consciousness. We have an online course right now on Christ consciousness you can join if you like. But even aside from that course, every year, for years and years and years and years, I do a 5-day intensive on how to awaken Christ, the inner Christ, the consciousness of Christ. Because it's something I know is all that really matters. I do other intensives, I do other lectures, I do other this and that and the other. But that's the ultimate right there. So I give thanks that I've never really been so distracted by the human way of doing things that I just catered to all the other topics people are interested in. I'll do the other topics and Christ. I'll do the other topics and Christ. It still comes back to that. I remember one time because I taught, here and there, on intimacy and relationships and sacred sexuality. There was this conference or group that would hold these conferences once in a while on sacred sexuality. And I noticed one time in my bio, they were like, oh, this is the guy that teaches sexuality from the place of Christ consciousness. And I thought, I never said that. You guys they're gonna think like it's Christian or something. You gotta be careful. I'm stealthier than that. Sacred sexuality. And then I'm going to talk about sacred, how all things are ultimately sacred because they're part of God. So I'm going to weave it in there and start going that direction. But, I never said, hi, welcome to those lecture on Tantra and sacred sexuality. Let's talk about Jesus. It wouldn't have made sense. I've never even mentioned Jesus in all my lectures on sacred sexuality. Well, actually, once I did. And it's when some of these Tantra people, they were pushing and emphasizing the thing about, well, Michael's kind of coming from that spiritual place. We're beyond that. We believe in just having sex with each other, and that is God. And I said, well, I just have a question, because they pushed it, so give me a break. So I said, well, so I'm just curious, the way you guys are a little hyper about this topic, I'm curious, do you believe that it's possible that there, for example, was a Jesus? Yes. Oh, yeah, probably. Do you think there was a Mary Magdalene? Oh, yes. Goddess Magdalene. Yes. Do you believe that if they were ever intimate, that it would have been an amazing experience. They're like, of course, because they're into sex. They want to, everything's amazing. It's sexual. So they're going, yeah, of course it would have been amazing, Jesus and Mary. And I said, well, do you think you would have had to get her high first, like you guys do with your clients? They never had me back, but, you know. The people in the audience were like, we get it. The teachers in the audience were like, we don't like this guy. Because I'm saying, why do you get your clients high? Why do you get them stoned? Why do they have to have acid or ecstasy if you're so good at what you do? Why do they have to be altered? You know, it's bull. So, well, that's the spiritual term for it. It's from the Akashic Records. It's right under B for BS. And people use terms like higher self. They names for God, or they'll say my higher self. Let's drop into our heart center right now. Guys, if there is a higher self, what would be higher than the Christ self, if that's God and man? If you have a center, why would you drop into any center? I can drop into the center of my pinky finger. What center is greater than the Christ within? So be careful and see through these things, these games. Don't criticize and hate people for it. Let's see through it. When they say, let's drop in our center, I'm channeling my higher self. All I know, and I can say higher self, and I can respect people's terminology, but what I do know is there's no greater center and no higher self than my Christ self. I don't walk around preaching it and using that word. I respect people's variations. We tailor things to their, terms and their consciousness. If I were talking to 5-year-olds, I wouldn't talk Christ. If I were talking to scientists, I wouldn't talk Christ. I would tailor anything to me because that's called bridging. But I'm asking you to always remember what you're talking about in here, deep in the recess. Call it anything you want, but know you mean the Christ and or God. You see what I'm saying? You don't have to blurt the word, but know what you mean. If you say higher self, be the one on the planet that's using higher self, but meaning the Christ self. There are, you could say, as I'm closing now, generally 3 types of people. There are mundane people that don't want to know any of this deeper stuff. Then there's a second group of people that do want to know so that they can call themselves God. So they're still not getting it. Sleeping people, and then awakening people, but some of those awakening people are doing this so they can say, oh, I'm God. Look at me. I can create with my mind. The third group would be those who say, I've gone without knowing who I am. I've gone with overinflating who I am. And now I am that I am. By surrendering humbly, I become who I really am. So I walk in and say to the Divine Mother and to the Father God, but I kneel and I say, Mother, I forgot. I forgot who I was. And I started overly inflating myself. Because you are the mother that you restore consciousness. You're the healer, Mom. You're the healer. I come to you and say, help me remember. And then the Divine Mother out there, universally and within us says, well, of course, honey, let me help you out. Let me help you clean out the wound, get out the false self. Let's wash it. It might hurt a little bit. Ouch. I know, honey. Hang in there. Washes out the lies that you are limited, you're abused, you're nothing but this. You're a single woman, you're aging, you can't have children, it makes you less than perfect. All these stories. I'm a smoker, I should have never smoked. I'm a drinker, I should have. All the stories. I'm a limited human being. I have this disease, I have that limited DNA. Lies. And she washed them out. Never really pays much attention. They're just lies. Why does she care? But you don't know, Mom, because I did some naughty things. I know, probably, but who cares? Let's wash. Do you want me to put the dirt back in? Well, of course not, Mom. Then don't bring it up. Let's let it go. Washes it clean, and it says, now let's put an ointment, a healing balm called your remembrance. Let's put that there and let it start healing the cells. Let the tissue start mending. That's God. Let's bring God back in. But you let go of the old self so that you can rise to the new self, the Christ self. Making sense? Let's have a few moments of silence. I brought, as some of you have requested sometimes, some decrees, some prayers. So today, there'll be a moment of silence held. There's hundreds of these that I have and dozens with me, but I'm only sharing a few. These decrees are short prayers, and these I call the spiritual set of decrees. But they're short prayers. Each of them ends with, I am as God created me. I will to be the Christ on earth. And several of the folks in here know that by heart, so they'll repeat that out loud. So you're welcome to just get used to that idea. But in this moment, first, we walk into this state of rising in consciousness. We walk into this state. Ready to bow humbly the ego self, the little, the small, illusionary self. Why would we rise in that? We bow that. And as we bow, we call upon your power, Father, Mother, God, to help birth us to a new self. All the insane, erroneous beliefs we have about ourselves, or that we allow other people to have on us and influence us with, all such things, we just open each center of our being, because we are the book of life. But we don't want chapters of abuse and hurt in our book of life. So we ask you, Father, Mother, God, to open the seals, empty them as you will, so that I can refill them with your presence, your love, and rise as a new person. So I bow, and along these chakras on my back that now are pointing towards the heavens, saying, here it is, clear me. We prepare ourselves. I joyously surrender my body and soul to the Spirit of God and allow myself to be filled with the truth of who I am. I joyously accept the knowingness that God fills my mind throughout the day. Be in my mind when I wake, my Father, Mother, God, and shine on me throughout the day today. Let every minute be a time in which I dwell with you. Let me not forget my minute-by-minute thanksgiving that you have remained with me and always will hear my call and will always answer me. As evening comes, let all my thoughts still be of you and of your love, Father, Mother, God. Let me sleep sure of my safety, certain of your care, and happily aware I am your holy child. I am as God created me. I will to be the Christ on earth. I joyously accept the knowingness that God's voice speaks to me all through the day. Father, Mother, God, I remember you are here and I am not alone. I have no cause for anything except the perfect peace and joy I share with you. I have no need for anger or fear as I am surrounded by perfect love, stillness, and safety. Your eternal promise goes with me. You created me in holiness as perfect as your own, and in this holiness I remain. I am as God created me. I will to be the Christ on earth. I joyously accept the knowingness that the gift of Christ is all I seek today. Father, Mother, God, this is your will for me today, and therefore it must be my own as well. This day I spend with you as you have chosen how all my days should be. What I will experience is not of time at all. The joy that comes to me is neither of days nor of hours, for it comes from heaven to your holy child. This day is your sweet reminder to remember you, your gracious calling to your holy child. This day is the sign your grace has come to me. It is your will that I be free today. I am as God created me. I will to be the Christ on earth. I joyously accept the knowingness that I am surrounded by the love of God. Today I let all things be as you, Father, Mother, God, created them, and I give you, your child, the honor due his perfection, his guiltlessness, his fearlessness. Today I leave creation to be itself. I honor all its parts in which I am included. I am one with each part which contains your memory, and truth must shine in all of us as one. Through this I am redeemed. Through this the truth will enter where illusions were. Light will replace darkness, and I will know I am as you created me. I am as God created me. I will to be the Christ on earth. I joyously accept the knowingness that everything is made from God's being, God's substance, God's light. I am made from God's light. I am made from God's light, and thus I am an individualization of God. I affirm that my I am presence is the only power that can act in my identity. I call forth the full conscious awareness of my I am presence and the divine plan for my sojourn on earth. I am as God created me. I will to be the Christ on earth. I joyously accept the knowingness that by the authority of my Christ self I call to all souls on earth, wake up and know ye are gods and goddesses. Father, Mother, God, use me in any and every way to assist in the awakening of my true self and my brothers and sisters from all dreams we have made. I will use this key to become a master and to take dominion over my life and the world around me. God's all-pervading wisdom now replaces all ignorance in my being and in the collective consciousness. I will to be the Christ on earth. I am as God created me. I will to be the Christ on earth. And lastly, I joyously invoke the holy name of my Father, Mother, God, whose name is holy as my own name is holy, as the Christ. I call forth the power of God's sacred name and the truth of all that God is. Your will is done in and through me, Father, Mother, God. You, my Father, Mother, God, are the part of me that has never forgotten who I am, and for this I am eternally grateful. I seek first your holy kingdom, which is oneness with my I am presence, and all else I desire is given to me. I surrender to the divine mind of you, my loving Creator, and I come to know and experience the presence of heaven. I call upon my Father, Mother, God, and all heaven rejoices in that holy instant. Your child has remembered his loving Creator. You place all power in my hands to create for you, Father, Mother, God, a loving and forgiven world. I am as God created me. I will to be the Christ on earth. My spirit is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. Let's repeat this 3 times, please. My spirit is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. My spirit is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. My spirit is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. God is raising the earth into a glorious new day. Today I choose to live and be the will of my Father, Mother, God. Today I choose the life of Christ. The kingdom of God is manifested in me and on earth now and forever. Amen. And just a moment of breathing that in. All that we just affirmed fills our chakras. This and more fills our centers of consciousness with pure light. The light of God shines within all my being and every center of my being, every part of my being, every aspect of my consciousness. I am the light of God here and now. I am a radiant being of remembrance here and now. And if God is with me, as me, in me, through me, what could be against me? The perfect, holy light of God. And I am then the Christ on earth. And so it is.